So to kind of review where we left off, we were mentioning reserves of the world, and I want you to keep in mind that the Middle East does have a lot of petroleum. And when you think of them, you think of conventional petroleum, which means your traditional methods of mining have less impact on the environment, and the reserves that were known to the world. So they were kind of like known reserves. But because of unconventional forms of mining, we have found, the United States has found a lot of oil shale, and that has put us on like a category of being one of the biggest producers of oil. Now, to kind of refresh what we did yesterday on our test, we had questions like consumers versus producers versus reserves. Those three things are different. Who consumes the most? Who consumes the most petroleum? Because this is review. The United States. We consume the most petroleum. Do we have the most? Some people say we do. Look, here's a graph. Some people say we don't. But I'm not going to ask you those types of questions on the test because there's so much controversy as to who has, and do we count conventional and unconventional? And the answer, of course, is yes. Because of unconventional oil mining, we are up there as having a lot of petroleum. And I'm going to just jump to this graph really quick because this is another one. So here's another graph of production. So reserves, consumption, and production are different. The United States is up there as the top producer. So we're producing, and in some sites, we're number one producer. A lot of sites, we're considered number one producer. We're producing a lot of oil. And people ask, now that we're producing a lot of oil, are we still importing? And the answer is yes. We're still importing almost the exact same amount that we used to. So we still trying to get from everybody else while we're producing a lot. What do we know about our reserves? If we look at reserves in general, which was this picture, these are conventional reserves. And at the end of the day, we stick to the fact that the Middle East has the most of the conventional reserves. Unconventional will be this shaded area, okay? And you'll see North America will increase its reserves by a lot according to what we know. Do we still have more? No, okay? So keep that in mind. Let's move on. And what we mean by unconventional is the fact that we have shale oil. This sand used to be considered unconventional, and now it's conventional. It like shifted. Why do you think it shifted? So if I was to ask you, how did oil sand go from unconventional to conventional? Give me one reason.
The technology got better, so it's more affordable.
That could be it. The technology got better, so it's more affordable. And what capacity? Like, what does she mean by that?
It's not as expensive to get it.
It's not as expensive to get it. It's not as troublesome to get it. So it shifted, okay? That's good. All right. Ours is still not considered that. Maybe we'll get there. And then a review. We frack to get unconventional shale oil, which means we do what? And this was not on your test, but it was on period C's test. So they had to explain how to mine unconventional natural gas, which is what?
Drill really deep.
Dig really deep.
Pour in water.
Pour lots of water to hit what? To hit what? The bedrock. To break it apart. To release, in this case, was natural gas because the topic was natural gas. So it could pump up the pipes. Same thing happens with petroleum, except it's going to release petroleum, okay? And that's called fracking. Now, if they mention the word fracking, is that describing? No. If you mention the word air pollution, is that describing? No, because you're not allowed to mention the word land pollution, air pollution, or water pollution on a test without describing what you mean. You have to describe what that means. All right, so now we're here. Who in the U.S. produces the most petroleum? I want you to underline Texas and Alaska. You could put, I guess, California there too. I'm not going to ask you a question without including Texas and Alaska as an option. So if you see those options together with other, it's going to be the right answer. Does that make sense? I want you to know at least those two because Texas has a lot And Alaska is very commonly referenced because of the problems associated with the mining and that type of area, okay? Consumption. We know that the U.S. consumes the most petroleum for what purpose? Transportation. So this is a review. 85% of our energy comes from fossil fuels. 39% of that is petroleum, and the main use for us is for transportation. So who controls, let's say, petroleum distribution, prices, exports? There's three groups. The first one is what? Government. So our government obviously has a say in what goes on, of course, right? But then who else? Private companies have a huge say. A lot of students question why we don't make better choices. We are a lot controlled by these private companies because they are very tight with government. They're side by side. Yes.
What about OPEC?
That's my next slide. So OPEC is really a huge component of the control of crude oil, especially controlling what? What do you think they're responsible for? Our biggest fear as well, yes, they control the amount of exports, but what's going to impact us the most? Price. They control price. So for a long time, the U.S. did have control over this because we had a lot. When our reserves drop, we are not even considered one of the organizations of petroleum export countries because we didn't have a lot. Now we have a lot, supposedly, right? But we didn't for a really long time. So we're talking about over 30 years, we've been concerned with the amount of petroleum. When I do these notes, I don't even talk about industry a lot with coal and natural gas because since we have it, we're more worried with petroleum. I kind of focus on that. And I want to talk a lot about that with this slide, okay? So when we talk about industry, fossil fuels in general provide us with a lot of goods, but petroleum was a good producer in the industry, and natural gas, which are the limited ones of the three fossil fuels. So what happens when OPEC decides to peak our prices? What's affected? How? I want specifics.
Market mission. Transportation.
Okay, so transportation. So what does that affect? If transportation, so people, us commuting, it's going to affect our budget because we have to pay more for gas. What else?
More of an inclination to be green, like to try not to be
good. There's going to be a switch to try to be a little bit greener, like switch to hybrids so that you can actually afford it. So maybe there's not an environmental conscience that makes you make that decision. It's a financial one, but yes. What else? Stick to the transportation prices going up. What of what? Why? So, okay, so it's going to affect prices of vehicles in general. I could accept that. Okay, but gas prices went up. We're affected as a person that commutes, that has to put gas every day. What else is affected when gas prices go up?
monetary value. Don't we have inflation?
We have inflation of everything. Why? Let's talk about that. Well, we technically are not spending less money because like I told you, when I used to pump gas, I used to pay double what I pay now. I still had to pay it. Now, would I have maybe made a decision, okay, I might not drive to South Beach today because I'm going to spend $50. Yeah. That's definitely a factor, but keep in mind, gas prices went up. We're affected totally. What else is affected?
Like industry, everything costs more to make, so that prices will rise.
Why does everything cost more?
Because they need like gas and oil to make stuff.
Gas, so industrialized product prices will go up. So things that we are going to talk about that are made in the industry are going to go up because they come from petroleum. I'm still on transportation though. Yes. If gas prices go up,
You can
Public transportation, yep. What's affected by transportation costs going up? We have industry, we have the consumer, what else? I'm gonna have to pause. So it was mentioned we product that has to be transported costs more money. What products in your life have to be transported? Everything. Because we don't have an industry here, do we? To produce goods. One major one is food, okay? So food prices, you have to transport the food that's produced. First of all, you use gas to produce food because you have tractors. You have to transport the food from the farm to the factory and from the factory to the store. And I can promise you food prices during this crisis, I could feel that things went up anywhere from 50 cents to $1. What about the packaging of food? What's it made out of? Most packaging of food? Plastic. Plastic is a petroleum byproduct. So keep that in mind. And of course, flights are going to rise, or any like major transporting system that uses petroleum, prices will rise as well. But when I say all prices will rise, try to link that, okay? Because there's definitely going to be a higher order thinking question on the test regarding that. So we're going to take 1 barrel of crude oil and we're going to make products from it. We know transportation is a huge thing. When you refine petroleum from 1 barrel of crude oil, you can make 15 gallons of what? 19 gallons, sorry, of gasoline. And change the word gas to gasoline for me, please. I'll add it with you. What else? 9 gallons of what? What's the next biggest fuel provider for cars? Diesel. 9 gallons of diesel. And then the rest is going to be other types of fuels and non-fuels. So if I was to ask you on the test, what are the 2 biggest products that are created from 1 barrel of crude oil? The answer is gasoline and diesel. And you have to know the 19 and the 9. Okay? Those 2 will be applied on the test. Other fuels we're going to talk about, and non-fuels we're going to talk about. Now, diesel, anybody know about diesel? What about it? What do you know about it? More efficient. So if diesel is more efficient, why has it been vanishing from use? Why? Do you know that 20 years ago, it used to be almost 50% cheaper than regular gas? So I'm saying 20 years ago. So why now is it more expensive? There's what? There's less diesel per every barrel. So no matter what, when you have a limited amount of petroleum and you're only going to get a limited amount of diesel, the economy shift. Diesel used to be a pump in every gas station. Now you have to drive to find them. So yes. Go back to this barrel. You see a whole bunch of fuel names. I'm going to kind of give you a breakdown. So we know gas is a fuel. We know diesel's a fuel. We know kerosene's a fuel. You see the word fuel oil. It has the word in it for you. These are the 2, aviation fuel, coker, and naphtha. Probably you don't know. You want to make sure to know those, okay? And all of these are used for transportation or heating. Transportation or heating. They are fuels of energy. And they come from petroleum. These are all petroleum products. Non-fuels. Name some for me. Cooking oil. No, because that would be for heating. So what's another kind of oil that's not for heating? Like car oils, lubricating oils, even like tanning oils maybe, right? Some kind of oil that doesn't have enough potential to produce heat, like for cooking oil, but it could be used for other purposes. What else? Paints is really solvents. So it's a chemical in the paint. What else? Yes, waxes, like which would be here. Petrol wax it's called. Yes, candles, crayons. Have you ever heard of organic candles? They exist. What do you think that means? Yeah, will be made out of something else. I'm not even going to say. You guys tell me in your projects. But they're not petroleum, obviously. What else? Petroleum jelly. Yeah.